Welcome, Nick Jain, the CEO of IdeaScale, to OpenTechTalks.tv.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, how people remember you, what you do?
Sure. So I'm the CEO of IdeaScale. We are the largest innovation-specific software company on the planet. We've been around 15 years. Major organizations like NASA, Comcast, Pfizer, Doctors Without Borders all use us to make sure that they are innovating better, both incrementally and transformationally.
Okay, so you are the machine who's giving organizations how to flourish ideas from different employees and bring it together.
Not just employees, but we try and help
Mhm.
you crowdsource ideas from your broader ecosystem. That's your employees, your customers, your shareholders, your constituents. Um, yeah, and we are the machine or the tool that enables these organizations to do what they're doing just a lot better and more efficiently.
All right. So, how Nick started his career, and when did you started working as a CEO of IdeaScale?
Sure. So, my background for the first half of my career, I worked in Wall Street as a professional investor doing private equity deals and hedge fund stock market investments. And then about 5 years ago, I somehow ended up in the job of being what I would call a professional CEO. People or private equity firms hire me to take companies to the next stage of their success. This could be a company that requires a turnaround or a company that's doing well and is ready to scale to that next level. So far, I've either run or co-run companies in $100 million revenue trucking company, a $2 million men's shoe startup, and now IdeaScale, which, as I mentioned, is the largest innovation software company on the planet. We're in 7 countries. And yeah, 7 countries and 100 plus people around the world at this point.
So, how do you describe before Nick joining IdeaScale and after joining IdeaScale, spending three years?
Sure. Sorry, 2 years, but uh,
Yes.
look, I'm pretty much the same person I think that I was 2 years ago. A few more gray hairs, perhaps. I think the big changes that IdeaScale has made as a company since I've joined are three things. Number one, we've expanded globally as a business. Number two,
Okay.
we invested a lot in product quality. I wanted a software that doesn't have bugs, is very easy to use. So we have twice as many QA engineers and processes as the average
Mhm.
software company our size, because we want to make sure not only that we are giving you lots of new features, but they actually just really work and they don't break on you. And number three, we started expanding into new products so that we can address more of the innovation pain points that a chief innovation officer may have. So literally just yesterday, we announced our long-term roadmap, which includes a whiteboarding module, which we've already launched, a project management module, which is coming out, some really cool qualitative data analytics, as well as some external crowd management services.
Okay. And as the CEO of the company, how is impacting our or helping you?
How is what? Sorry.
How AI is helping you or impacting you over the last 1.5 year?
Sure. So AI is impacting us in two ways. Firstly is
Hmm.
in our internal operations, and secondly is our actual software and how we use AI there. On impacting us
Hmm.
internally, we were big adopters, and me personally, were big believers in the power of AI tools to make us more efficient internally. So
Hmm.
almost right from when ChatGPT and other tools started coming, generative AI tools started coming out, we incorporated it into our daily routines as professionals. So our marketing team is heavily using it. Our software engineers are using Copilot tools like GitHub Copilot or Amazon Q. I use it, for email writing, for data analysis, things like that. So we've used AI really heavily internally to just become way more efficient at doing our jobs. And that is true regardless of which department you're in. In terms of externally, I think we have been intentionally a little bit more measured in how we use AI in implementing our software. I think a lot of software companies over the last year and a half have just started saying we use powered by AI or adding AI to their marketing campaigns because it's just such a big buzzword. Everyone wants to say
Right.
they use AI. For us, I think we decided, look, we're going to use AI in our software when it makes sense to do so, rather than just to pretend that we use it and to brag about it in marketing purposes.
Okay. Now, based on your experience as a CEO of the company, maybe some of the audience on the C level listening to us, what are your recommendations to them to take either generative AI or an AI in their organization? Is there any framework, any tips based on your experience of 2 years?
Sure. So I think a few things. Number one, I would encourage all senior leaders to go take actual training courses in generative AI. Everyone knows how to chat with ChatGPT. That's easy. But how
Mm,
many people are actually exceptional users of generative AI techniques? How many people have taken prompt engineering courses, things like
mm,
that? So I personally have. I've taken 3 courses in prompt engineering and a bunch more in the more technical side of AI. So any
mhm,
leader, regardless whether you're a marketing leader or a finance leader or a technology leader, I would recommend you
mm,
first go learn how to
mm,
use generative AI tools very effectively. It takes 10,
mm,
20 hours of your time, and it's a really good investment to go learn how to do this stuff effectively. Number two, I would encourage you then to push your organizations or the people under your chain of command to go
mhm.
adopt these technologies, but become power users of these technologies. And
Right.
C, there's a great go figure out where in your organization these technologies add the most value very quickly. The most obvious examples are in marketing, in
Mhm,
branding, in software engineering, and number four
mhm.
in data analytics. These are areas where generative AI technologies are really good and can provide a lot of value really quickly without a lot of overhaul to your existing business processes.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And is there any security or privacy or some ethical equations or ethical areas they need to keep in mind while intaking the AI or generative AI into an organization?
Sure. So that's a really big question. I'll try and answer it, and I'll break
Mm,
it into the data privacy versus ethical concerns. So on data
right.
privacy, you have a choice of different models, whether it be
Mhm,
ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or
right.
Llama, and each of these have their own privacy policies and data security policies. For
Mhm,
example, Llama is an entirely open source model that you could download off of GitHub, totally free. You
right.
just need to have your own server. You can run it off your basement server or you can run it off an AWS server. In that case, your data never is going
Mm,
to Google or OpenAI or Anthropic. Your data is
mm,
staying private to you and no one else can learn of your data. No one else can train on it. Alternatively, if you
mm,
use ChatGPT, if you use their free license, they're reading
mhm,
everything that you put and they have access to all your data. And if you use their paid license, they say they're not using it.
mhm,
Which you can or cannot trust them. That's your choice as an organization. So on data
mhm,
privacy, you have a lot of freedom on how much you want to protect your data or whether you're okay giving it
right.
to these large AI giants. On the ethics side, I think AI has
Mm,
a lot of complex ethics. Number one
mhm,
is almost like with any technology, you can use AI to do some really horrible things. To use a really
right.
silly example, you could use a DVD burner 20 years ago to copy DVDs, right? DVD burners weren't
Mm,
meant for that, but you could do it
mhm,
and you could pirate lots of software, movies, or stuff, and lots of people did. So any technology can be
right.
good or evil. You can ask AI to help you develop plans to do evil things. That's an ethical
Mhm,
problem. I think a lot of the AI technologies have started putting guardrails on their software, so it's less likely, but there's always ways around these guardrails. The second big ethical concern is in terms of jobs. The unfortunate
mhm,
reality is AI, like any technology, makes the world more efficient. That means that
mhm,
certain jobs are destroyed, and you have to be kind of comfortable with that.
mhm,
And you may not be, or you may alternatively want to mitigate the effects of the job disruption that's occurring. Um,
mhm,
and then third is a more kind of existential ethical problem where we are quickly approaching the area where AI can think, at least in limited
mhm,
capacities. And that's something that's
mhm,
been uniquely human for the past 10,000 years. No, machines could help us do something. A
right.
hammer could help you put a nail in, but it couldn't put a nail in itself. It still required a human guidance. We're now starting to approach an
Mhm,
area where AI is fundamentally displacing discretionary thinking tasks that humans have been done. This is a big
mhm,
ethical problem at a societal level, and I don't think we as a society have figured out how can we solve it for the people that will be permanently displaced because AI can now do all of their jobs. There's been plans put forward such as universal basic income. There's countries that are just trying to outlaw AI because they think they see the problems that it's going to result in the job market. That's a much bigger ethical concern that I think we should be aware of. I certainly am not well situated to solve that problem myself.
Okay, and thank you for explaining it from a data privacy and ethical point of view. Now, maybe lead the conversation to the area where you were being a product owner now. And similarly, if we take a situation with the customers or any IT senior leadership, that they are being forced to adopt or bring something in AI. This is what you also mentioned it. So, do you have any recommendation or suggestions for anyone from the audience that if they want to take up any use case corresponding to maybe an AI or a generative AI, what could be their way forward to take it up?
Sure. I think the easiest way that has the
Mm,
least amount of risk for most
mm,
organizations
mm,
is to incorporate it into your marketing departments. I think a lot
mm,
of what marketing
mm,
departments do, whether you're selling potato chips, complex
mhm,
software, or military
mm,
equipment, is there's a
mm.
lot of marketing is about crafting a message, whether that be a
Right.
verbal message, a visual message, an audio message. And I think one of the cool things generative AI has done, especially in the marketing field, is allow you to a automate all the generic writing emails,
Mm,
stuff like that, the generic tasks, but then also allowed you to be more creative because you can brainstorm or war game with an AI. So
mm,
if you want
mm,
ideas for a marketing campaign, you
mhm,
can bounce
mhm.
ideas back and forth with some of the
Right.
text generative AI tools, and then use a video generative AI tool to generate this. And I think this is least risk because it is something that is still controlled and guided by a human being, but is also
Mm,
very
mm.
impactful right away. And you can show the value to your organization of these tools really quickly.
Okay. All right. As an organization, have you started exploring in the code generation or in the coding yet as
Yeah,
your technical team or not yet?
absolutely, yes. So we have been, as I mentioned, we were
Mm,
aggressive adopters of generative AI very, very early on,
mm,
including in our
mm,
software engineering. So we
mhm,
are, we've tried out several different generative AI tools. My
mm,
engineering team prefers GitHub Copilot. I personally, in my own
mhm,
coding, prefer Amazon Q, but there's a bunch of different
mm,
tools out there. So we use it for new code generation. And just earlier this week, we started
mhm.
exploring a tool for what's called QA test generation. So it's a specific type
Okay.
of code where you are
Mm, mm,
uh,
mhm,
double checking your existing code works correctly and doesn't break. So we're big adopters, and I'm a big believer in both the power of these tools to make
mhm.
human engineers more efficient, but also to catch errors that human engineers might make.
And have you done any review of that before taking up the Gen AI into code review or generation, and after is there any improvement on the delivery of the code quickly, or maybe your project timelines or product features timelines got reduced?
Sure. So, firstly, just to clarify, we don't push any code to our customers unless it's been reviewed by a human being. Even if it's been AI assisted in writing the code, we
Mm,
obviously still go through a traditional human review process on the code.
right.
In terms of
Mm,
productivity gains,
mm, mhm,
we as a company have not rerun the studies for how much
yeah.
productivity we gain, but there's a bunch of really good research out there that says human
Mm,
engineers gain somewhere between 20 to 60% productivity using generative
mhm,
AI tool, or at least what I call the Gen 2 generative AI tools, which were those that came out last year. So
mhm.
20 to 60% increase in productivity and between a 5 to 30% decrease in error rate, which is really useful.
All right. Now, as you are experienced in managing a product companies, now maybe a question for if someone are new to the market and he or she want to launch or a new or product, and he's building, maybe he or she is building a SaaS product, and in during this development process the key aspect is how to validate the idea, get the users feedback. And same way, you being a product owner, you must be going through if you want to introduce a new feature. So how you are ensuring that this new feature is being validated with the customers or maybe your user base? And similar to this one, you can give them some input or insight. what he or she should be doing it?
Sure. It's a little bit more difficult to do that if you are a pre-product company, right? Because
Mm,
you have to build
mm,
a product, get some iteration
mm,
feedback, right? So
right.
that's a little bit more difficult. But assuming you are at least a somewhat established company, you have built a
Mm,
product, then I think that
mhm,
there's two things you can do. Number one is engaging with your customers during your road mapping or product design cycle, saying, hey,
mhm,
here's a feature we're thinking of designing. Here's what it kind of looks like. Here's what it kind of might behave like, even when it's just a couple of words on a page or a quickly
mhm,
drawn out Figma. And that's
mhm.
something you can iterate on very quickly because a Figma might only take 30 minutes to do, and you have a 30
Right.
minute conversation with your customer. You have a quick feedback cycle. That's method number one. Um,
Mhm.
Method number two is what's called the experimental feature design process, which
Okay.
is I'm going to design 10 features. I know some of
Mhm.
them will suck, right? I just don't
Okay.
know which ones. I think they're all going to be, I think they're all good at, in theory, but customers will
Mhm.
like two or three of them. I just don't know which ones. So what you do is you
Mhm.
build all 10 of those features. And
Mhm.
when customers hate seven of them, you just shut them off. And you can do that
Mm,
this either in a full deployment setting or with an A/B setting or with an alpha
mm,
setting. And each
mhm,
company does it different ways depending on what their technical infrastructure and their deployment infrastructure is like.
mhm,
For IdeaScale, we use a mix of both of those methods. We both incorporate customers in our product development cycle, getting them very, very early, getting feedback from them very early on which feedback or features we should be building, how those features
mhm,
look, and then testing the alpha versions of those features. But then we also do this experimental product development cycle where we will make a bunch of changes. And we know some of
mhm,
them will be bad, but that's okay because we'll have found some amazing features as part of our experimental approach too.
mhm. Okay. That's a uh, first time I'm hearing this one also, that you build 5-10 features and then you get the feedback
But
on
most
top of it.
companies do, right?
Mm.
The
Okay.
funny thing is,
Okay.
most companies don't actually think about it that way. They think every
Mm,
feature is going to be great. But let's be
mhm.
honest, not every
Yeah.
idea that comes out of your head is great. So I think at
True.
IdeaScale, we're just a lot more honest that we think every idea we have is great, but we know 7 out of 10 ideas are going to be rejected
Mhm,
by the market for reasons beyond our
mm.
control, and that's okay. So we're just more intellectually honest about the way most software companies actually develop features.
All right. Right. Now, as in leadership position in the organization, you're also taking care of marketing, sales, right? Maybe some tips for a newbie who is just bootstrapping some startup, some idea. He's having a budget constraint. So, what could be his way forward for working on marketing or a sales initiative?
Sure. So we spend almost zero on marketing, by the way. I mean, we have people in marketing, but I just spend zero on digital advertising. I don't pay anything for Google, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. 100%, like 95% of my marketing is
Hmm.
organic SEO related. And the other 5%
Okay.
is like webinars and things like that. So we run
Mm-hmm.
an incredibly efficient marketing department. I have 10 times the organic web traffic of my next five competitors combined.
Mm-hmm.
And so the advice I would give, and I think this has been really effective for IdeaScale,
Mm-hmm.
is rather than doing the traditional advertising where we're just trying to get our name in front of you, people look
Mm-hmm.
past the blue Google ads, right? Let's be honest. Everyone advertises in
Right.
Google and nobody cares because we know it's just somebody paying to get their name on Google. It may not even be most
Mm-hmm.
relevant. What we've
Mm-hmm.
done, I think, really effectively, and I advocate for others to do, is really
Mm-hmm.
high quality content marketing. And by
Okay.
content marketing, I don't just mean a big blog article that so you can throw your name in there. When we write a blog
Mm-hmm.
article, we have hundreds of blog articles. They don't even mention IdeaScale's name. They're not
Mm-hmm.
ads for our software. They're just, if you want to know this topic about innovation, you go read this blog. If you want to know this topic about fishbone structures, go read this. And it's not advertising for us. People come to our website, they will read our blog or see our how to's on X, Y, or Z topic related to innovation, and they will know these guys are the best at this field. And look, if they want to stick around and be customers, great. Otherwise, it's okay if they leave. And that's why we've established credibility as experts in this area. So when customers quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote read our marketing, they're getting smarter at whatever they do and they get value through our marketing. Whereas I think the typical way most marketers approach marketing is advertising. They're trying to do it for their own benefit, not for the customer's benefit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good way of doing a marketing. Excellent. I liked it. Personally, I mean, I'm not a marketing guy or running any business, but I liked it. Okay, so it's mean then your major from a marketing and this point of view, this is your one of the major cost factor even from resources, employees, and running it from
Yeah.
overall.
I think, look, we have three main marketing channels. Number one, we
Mm-hmm.
have our organic SEO, which is very heavily focused on
Right.
high quality content. Second is we
Mm-hmm.
run monthly webinars, and again, those webinars are not they're not advertising webinars for us. We bring in a world expert on a topic. So, for example, we've had people from NASA come in and talk about NASA's innovation program. In a couple of
Mm-hmm.
weeks, we have the head of the one of the architects of the ISO 5601. That's the standard for
Mm-hmm.
innovation. So
Right.
one of the guys who
Mm-hmm.
wrote the standards for the international standards for innovation is coming to talk, and he's not talking about
Mm-hmm.
IdeaScale. He's talking about
Right.
why the ISO standards are cool. So like people who attend our
True.
webinars, they know they're not getting advertising for IdeaScale. They're getting, again,
Mm-hmm.
very good high quality content that
Mm-hmm.
makes them smarter. The third is
Mm-hmm.
kind of more email marketing, and that's, I think, a little bit more akin to traditional advertising, where we're talking about case
Okay.
studies on how IdeaScale has helped us. Notice all of those
Mm-hmm.
cost us nothing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not because we're cheap, but we've realized those are more valuable to customers than throwing a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of ads that customers ignore. Because again, if you create value for the customers, they will come back to you. And our marketing actually
Right.
creates value for them while they're engaging with it.
Okay. All right. Now, as a busy CEO of an organization, how you manage and hire the talent? And I'm asking from a question from a point of view where if someone from the listeners and they're pursuing their next career move, so maybe some tips for them that what are the key characteristics you see in the candidates, irrespective
Okay.
of the role,
Yeah.
you know.
So IdeaScale, I think, is really good at how we hire people because our
Okay.
process is very systematic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true whether you're applying for a marketing role, whether you're applying for a engineering role. By systematic, we mean we test for real skills. We don't care what
Okay.
you look like, what accent you have,
Mm-hmm.
what group you identify with. None of that matters to us. We're looking for just the best people, and I think we measure that systematically with a few different ways. Number one, we test for your
Okay.
hard skills. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, we look for ethics. We are a remote first organization, have been even before COVID. We want to make sure we can trust you to get your job done, even though you're not sitting in a cube and your boss doesn't know what you're doing. And
Right.
number three, we
Mm-hmm.
look for people who are
Mm-hmm.
invested in continuous learning. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
job you're in, the skills that are relevant today are not actually going to be
Mm-hmm.
that useful tomorrow, right? Like knowing how to
Mm-hmm.
write a great marketing email or social media post was a
Mm-hmm.
very valuable skill 3 years ago. Now
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT does that much better than any human being can.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we want human beings who are always learning and developing their skills. So that could be a software engineer who's learning new programming languages, new frameworks. That could be a marketer who's looking at new advertising platforms. That could be a salesperson who's
Right.
taking new sales techniques. Somebody who needs to be willing to continuously learn. And by the way, that applies to me as well. I spend something like 10 to 30 hours every month
Mm-hmm.
developing new skills so I can remain relevant today, tomorrow, and 5 years from now.
Right. And now, as you are in a leadership position, so sometime you get some suggestions or recommendations. So if we categorize into like, what are the bad recommendations you hear in your area of maybe management or in your product development?
Sure. So on the product development, I have a very easy answer. We use our own software to figure out which are good and bad suggestions. So everybody, whether you're a
Okay.
customer, whether you're an employee, whether you're a student,
Mm-hmm.
can submit new
Mm-hmm.
feature ideas for a product, and those ideas get
Mm-hmm.
upvoted and downvoted. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
funny to see that my own ideas as CEO sometimes get downvoted because people think they're bad ideas. So it's very easy on the product side. It's very objective. Sitting in my
Mm-hmm.
seat as CEO, I think the most frequent mistake I see from both junior and senior personnel is
Mm-hmm.
how to make good decisions, how to make good business decisions, because the essence of a good business decision is it creates value, doesn't have a positive ROI. And unfortunately, a
Right.
lot of leaders were never given the training on how do you actually make good decisions, either because their bosses didn't know or because their bosses didn't invest in teaching them. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, like if a business decision doesn't create value and make the pie bigger, there's not
Mm-hmm.
then there's no money to pay your employees, there's no money to pay your
Right.
shareholders, no money to make a better product. So every business decision, when you're hiring somebody, when you're firing somebody, when you're building a new feature, when you're running a sales marketing campaign, it has to make the pie bigger. It has to have a positive ROI. And that is not a qualitative assessment, but that can be quantified. That's a really critical skill that I think a lot of senior leaders are less effective at making than or developing than they should be.
So now, how Nick has trained himself to become a leader?
Sure. So look, there's many different types of leaders. Some people lead through personal charisma, some people lead through product vision, some people lead through operations. For me as
Right.
a person, I think I lead through principles. I have certain
Mhm.
beliefs, not beliefs, there's certain things about the world that are true that I make
Mhm.
sure are very clearly communicated. So at IdeaScale, for example, we want our principles are very clear. We want to deliver a high quality product. Number two,
Mhm.
we want to help companies innovate better. Number three, our business decisions internally are made to maximize ROI. Um,
Mhm.
and number four, when value is created, everyone benefits. So whether it be our customers, our employees, our shareholders, we try and share the value that's created equally or
Mhm.
fairly, I should say. Um, so that that's always been my style, even since I was a child. That's the way my brain is wired to think in terms of principles. I'm a theoretical mathematician, so the entire world to me is a series of laws and things that
Mhm.
logical truths that A must proceed
Right.
from B. For me to how I've trained myself in order to be more effective, given my strengths and weaknesses, and that the way my brain is wired,
Mhm.
is number
Mhm.
one. I'm investing in continuous learning, whether that be in technical subjects, whether that be in
Mhm.
soft skills like
Mhm.
communication,
Mhm.
whether I spent a bunch of time in business school, which is obviously a lot of development about the soft sides of business. So I spend a lot of time in formal learning because I think that's really important for me. That helps me sharpen up my strengths and weaknesses as a leader.
Mhm.
Number two is I I strongly believe in delegated decision making. So I was having a chat with a friend of mine yesterday who works for a
Mhm.
big government agency, and he was mentioning that of the 1,500 employees at the agency, only seven have any decision making power. That's terrible. That
Mhm.
means the other 1,493 don't really
Mhm.
do anything. They just show up to work. At
Mhm.
IdeaScale, by comparison, somewhere between 10 to 15% of employees have significant discretionary power, which is great.
Mhm.
That means that they
Mhm.
can act independently and create
Mhm.
value and react more quickly than if you have to go through a bureaucratic process. And that's a conscious decision I've made because A, it limits me being a bottleneck, but B, it also
Mhm.
makes us able to be more nimble in serving our customers.
Mhm. Okay, great. And how, as it's a tech product, right? Technology product, so you need to go to work in engineering and all that. So how you navigate from a people management to go inside the engineering and checking what is going on product, a new feature development. How do you see yourself navigating all the layers? Or you just delegate to your product engineering owners or product managers and then you just leave to them that they will come back with the results?
Sure. So I'm not an engineer. I'm not actively in the code most of the time. I go into the
Mm,
code a little bit of the time when I'm like testing out new software features. So for
mm,
example, I wanted to test out this new QA automation AI. So I
right.
went into our code base and used the QA automation AI.
Mm,
And then once it worked, I then passed it off
mm,
to my real engineering team, like, hey, this is a really cool tool. You should use it to make
mm,
your code base better. I'm
mm,
much more actively involved on the product side. I'm involved in three ways. Number one,
mm,
I've laid out what defines a good product very clearly. My going back to my
mm,
principle, I said a product
mm,
that drives customer engagement. A
mhm,
piece of software that the customer is using or a feature that the customer is using that's good. If they're not using it, it's a bad feature, it's a bad product. So we
mhm,
think about this, we measure it every day, and that's how
mm,
we think about that's a principle.
mm,
Second
mhm,
is I make sure I hold people accountable. I make sure
mhm,
deadlines are met. I make sure that deadlines are set, deliverables happen. And number
mhm,
three, I'm actively involved in using the product and designing the roadmap. So when we
mhm,
decide what features are being built, I go look
mm,
at them and say, hey, does this make sense? I go
mm,
test the features myself because
mhm,
the worst possible thing I think a tech CEO and any CEO can be doing is
mhm,
being divorced from their product. If you're a McDonald's CEO, you should be trying your eating at McDonald's frequently, right? If you
mhm,
are the CEO of a software company, you should be using
mm.
your own software.
Right.
Uh, And that's something I think is really important. I'm in our software literally every single day because I need to know what my customers feel, what they love, what they hate,
Mhm.
and so that we can build on our software every day.
All right. So before concluding to our sessions, maybe a couple of questions on the side of how Nick is ensuring that you need to also answer to the shareholders from a profit loss, right? Sales targets. So what strategy you are following as a leader?
The strategy, well, I think there's only one strategy to follow. Like,
Mhm.
number is be honest with your shareholders about the good and bad, right? I have a board,
Mhm.
well, one person board who is the primary
Yeah.
shareholder of the company. And
Mhm.
good or bad, I'm transparent with him. When we have good results, I
Mhm.
share it with him. When we have bad results, I share it with him. When I need advice on something, I share it with him. That's why a board or advisors exist. The
Mhm.
second thing I think that is really important, and that I think we've done well at IdeaScale, is create an incentive structure
Mhm.
that motivates me to do right by the company. So whether
Mhm.
it be my compensation or my professional success is very
Mhm.
aligned with doing what is
Mhm.
right for the shareholders. And so they can trust me that every day I'm
Mhm.
working my butt off to create value
Mhm.
for them because I'm well incentivized to do so.
Mhm. All right. How do you see in next 3 to 5 years your product going into directions?
Sure. I think there's two main things that are happening to IdeaScale's product over the next
Mm.
couple of years, or even maybe over the next year. Number one is we'll continue to expand globally and have more of an impact on
Mhm.
organizations around the world. Every large organization needs some form of innovation operating system, and I think we are the best choice for that. So we're going to
Mhm.
expand globally. We've historically been a mostly US centric organization. Now over the past year, we've
Mhm.
expanded globally and had some great success there. I think the second area is expanding our product suite. And it's actually funny you asked me this question because just yesterday we released our long-term product roadmap,
Mhm.
or long-term product vision, I should say, which says,
Mhm.
look, we have these two great products already, whiteboarding and idea management, but our customers
Mhm.
also want some AI-driven qualitative analytics. They also want
Mhm.
trend scouting. So we're going to build these modules in over the next couple of months or over the next year. And so the big change from a product perspective is we're going to go from like a one module company to many modules which customers can pick and choose based on their specific innovation pain points.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining on the Open Tech Talks. Now, if someone want to reach out to you from the audience, what is the best medium to they can reach out to you?
Sure, two ways. Firstly, you can go to ideascale.com, and if you want to use our software for free, if you're below 100 people, our software is completely free for you, whether you're a person individual with a Gmail address or a small startup or a mid-sized organization. So that's method
Mhm.
number one. Method number two is if you want to reach me personally, the best way is through LinkedIn. My name is Nick Jain, and I'm usually the first search result on LinkedIn, and I respond to 100% of messages.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining and sharing your leadership experience with the audience and Open Tech Talks community. Thank you, and wish you good luck with your role and blessings with your day to day job.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kasha.